Well, hello, friends. I hope you can hear us. My name is Joseph Backholm. I'm a senior fellow with the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C. And can I get some confirmation that we actually have Sand here? Because I'm going to jump in and make sure that we're going good now. We're going to talk about looks like we're getting it. We got sound good. And I am happy to be stepping in here for Craig and sorry to be doing that, but thank you for joining us from all over the country as we, in this really significant week, talk about what is happening in Washington, D.C., and most importantly, what you can do about it, what I can do about it, what we all can do about it. And the Equality Act, you're going to hear a great lineup over the next hour of people who are going to tell the stories of the impacts of what the Equality Act is and how it affects potentially churches, certainly women's rights. You're going to hear a lot about that, about safety and sports issues. You're going to hear about the impact on Christian universities and whether they're going to continue to do what Christian universities exist to do, which is be Christian and teach Christian things. You're going to hear about the impact on nonprofit organizations, foster care, adoption agencies, whether they're going to continue to operate with the inspiration of what it is that has brought them to do what they do. Conscience rights, specifically for healthcare providers. Should someone who spent their life going to medical school be required to do something that violates their conscience, like remove a healthy body part, like give prescriptions that will interfere with fertility to somebody who experiences gender dysphoria? Those are just some of the implications of what the Equality Act will do. But I think as we get this going, what we need everybody in America to understand, what you need to be telling your friends, is this is not really about ending discrimination. This legislation is about creating conformity with a very specific way of thinking, with a very specific worldview. And in fact, these are fundamentally religious disagreements. Different ways of seeing the world and how that affects our views about gender, about sexuality, about things like marriage. Is America a place that will tolerate those differences, or is America a place where the government will be taking a side and taking a position and saying, you must feel this way? Now, just to help us understand historically how normal this kind of thing is from governments, in 16th century France, you might be aware of the battle between the Protestants, the Huguenot Protestants, and the Catholics in France. And they had a 30 years war. They basically spent a century kind of fighting over these things. But toward the end of the 16th century, the French, it was King Henry IV, had to repel the Spanish invaders, and in doing so, kind of united the Protestants and the Catholics to defend France from an invasion against Spain. And after that, what happened was Henry IV declared something called the Edict of Nantes. And what it did is it allowed Protestants to have their own space. They allowed them to basically have their own towns that they could defend. But then, about 80 years later, Louis XIV decided that he wanted to eliminate the Edict of Nantes, which was in effect until uniformity, religious agreement, had been reached. And religious agreement required the Protestants and Catholics to agree on everything. And of course, that's kind of hard to find. But Louis XIV decided that he was going to create religious agreement within France by eliminating all the Protestants. How did he do that? Something called the Dragonnades. And he sent dragoons into all the Protestant homes, and this was an order of the king, and basically said, you can steal their stuff, you can destroy their homes, you can destroy their businesses, and the only thing that you had to do to prevent the dragoons from living in your house and destroying everything is convert. And that's what Louis XIV did. And after the Dragonnades, a few years of Dragonnades, what do you know? All of the people who were Protestants had converted to Catholicism to prevent the economic destruction of their lives. Those who refused to convert eventually fled France, and eventually Louis XIV determined that there was uniformity, there was religious agreement, there was, maybe in today's vernacular, unity. They achieved unity not through shared values, but through coercion by the government. So this kind of thing is not new in government, but it's new in America, and frankly, it should have no part in America. But that's what we're dealing with the Equality Act, and that's what we need everybody to understand. So we have a great lineup. If you have comments, do check in, share this as you're watching it. But I think we might have some some sound things resolved. So I'm going to maybe see if we can go back to Craig. I'm going to guess, and he can introduce the rest of us now. So glad you're with us. Share this, like it, comment, get this conversation going, because everybody in America needs to know what's going on. Craig, are you with us?
Well, before we go anywhere,